Growsmarters, welcome back. The last time I saw you, we spoke about some tips that you can use in your creative writing. If you have not already watched that video, I highly recommend that you do so. In today's video, we will be discussing the creative writing process and each of the steps that you should follow when writing your own stories. Before you start writing your story, it is always a good idea to plan it first. One way of doing this is by creating a mind map. Mind maps are helpful because they allow us to see how plot lines link with one another, and they give us a rough idea of the story that we want to tell. Throughout your planning, you need to keep in mind and jot down ideas for the characters, settings, and the events that you want to take place in your story. In our previous video, we discussed the setting and what you should keep in mind when deciding what the setting is for your story. Now we are going to discuss character development. First, you need to decide on a name for your character. Then you need to think about what he or she looks like. Are they tall or short? What color are their eyes? What color is their hair? Maybe they are bald and they don't even have any hair. What does your character like to wear? You also need to consider what features make your character stand out. Do they have scars or birthmarks? Maybe they have tattoos or piercings. Maybe they walk with a limp, or maybe they're missing a limb. Next, you need to think about what your characters like and dislike. What are their hobbies? What are their favorite foods? Who are the kinds of people that they like to spend their time with? Once you have chosen your character's likes and dislikes, you can decide on their strengths and weaknesses. In this section, you can also jot down some personality traits. For example, some strengths could include being loyal, dedicated, or hardworking. Some weaknesses could include being rude, aggressive, or short-tempered. Another thing you need to consider is the challenges that your characters face. Do they get lost somewhere? Do they lose a loved one? Or maybe they have a tough decision to make. You also need to think about the lessons that they learn. Maybe they learn the importance of telling the truth. Maybe they learn the importance of family and loved ones. The next step of the creative writing process is the draft. There are 4 things that we'll be doing in this step. The first one is creating a cover page for our story. This is quite fun because you can use any medium to create an image to represent your story. The second thing we'll be doing is creating a blurb. This is a short summary that tells people a little bit about the story without giving anything away. The purpose of this is to promote your story or to get people to want to read it. The third thing we'll be doing is writing an actual draft of our story. This involves writing our story in full sentences and paragraphs. Remember to keep in mind the tips that we discussed in the previous video. The last thing we'll be doing in this step is practicing our illustrations for the story, or pictures that go with different parts of the story. Next, we need to revise our stories. This involves reading the draft aloud to yourself several times. Each time you read the story, make sure to keep an eye out for words that need to change or be removed. Also think about words that you may want to add to the story. Once we have revised our stories, we can edit them. This step involves making the changes that you decided on in the previous step. These changes can help to make your story more interesting and much easier to read. After editing our stories, we need to proofread them. This involves double-checking our spelling, grammar, and punctuation. We also need to make sure that our storylines flow really well and that the story is easy to follow. The final step of the creative writing process is presenting your story. This involves you either reading your story to somebody else or getting them to read it themselves and allowing them to provide feedback. You then need to consider the feedback that they have provided and make any changes that you think are necessary. Write your final story in pen and make sure to stick to the word count for your grade. You also need to make sure to create your final cover page and to make some beautiful illustrations to go with your story. By now, you should feel more than prepared to write your own creative writing stories. Remember that your Growsmart creative writing workbooks provide plenty of space for you to work through each of the steps of the creative writing process. See you next time. Bye!